Om Shanti. All of you seem to have covered the sort of ground that I would have done. So it's great that you're already aware of all of these things. It came out this morning that you're already very much on a spiritual track, and so all the responses are the things that you've been sharing. I'd just like to say that there's a particular practice that we have, which we call Mansa Seva. And some years ago, we actually had a whole retreat, Call of Time retreat on that topic. And we explored how Mansa Seva means two things. On the one side, it means to be able to serve my mind so that I'm going through the process of being able to clean it so that my mind is pure and is able to create pure thoughts and good wishes, pure feelings for all. And the second is that when I've done that work, then I'm in a place where I can use my mind to be able to serve. And we thought about translating it into service through the mind, but then we said, but what about service of the mind? So having gone through that, we decided we'll just keep the Hindi language, Mansa Seva. Simple words, and you can see very much the connection of Mansa, mind, Seva, service. So it wasn't such a strange language. And we've been doing Mansa Seva for a long time, especially from 1976. We started doing what we call World Meditation Hour. And when we began, we did it synchronized together, all our centers, and at that point was about 30 countries of the world. And as it grew and grew, and people from New Zealand were joining in, because we were looking at India time 5:30, which was around wintertime, summertime, around 12 o'clock, which was on a Sunday, third Sunday of the month. And it was good for most of the world, but not for New Zealand and not so much for Australia. And so after several years, they said, can we shift it? They were very good. They just accepted it at first. And in the middle of the night, they'd come to the center and sit together for an hour. And then they requested a change. So then we began to do it local time, 6:30 in the evening, everywhere. And so it's like a rolling mechanism, goes all around. And in Mansa Seva, what we're doing is connecting with the divine and sending not my thoughts, but being with the one above, sending that light and love, not specifically to one place. And if there is a specific request, well, to hold that person, place, situation, just for a few moments, but then further to really connect up above so that the light is able to reach everywhere. And it became very, very powerful, especially during COVID. We started a lot of online activities, as every organization did through COVID. And as the whole thing went on, and people's relatives or people who used to come to the center themselves became ill, or there was bereavement in the family, we started getting lots of requests. Can we send, we call this Sakash. Sakash is the word that puts across the idea of light, of love, of energy, power. So it's all contained within this word Sakash, like a beam of light that reaches where it's needed. So we started getting requests for Sakash from many, many individuals, for their families, for people who were close to them. And the whole class, everybody online, but the whole class would then spend a few minutes every time this request came through, and we would hold that awareness and send out Sakash. And some people got better, some people didn't, but even when they didn't, the family would report back and say, that they left peacefully, and the family also was left in a peaceful state, rather than a state of reaction and upheaval and bitterness or so many other things that could have come up. And so Sakash became something that many centers across the world were doing every single day. So I know that the power of vibrations works. And if it's my vibrations of good wishes for an individual, they reach the individual. But especially when there's a collective energy, then that energy multiplies. And so the power of Sakash helps hugely, and we see the results. Many stories about that, but I won't go into the detail. And so one of the ways in which we can help ourselves, but also help others in a troubled world, is to go up above and connect. And the way I'm helping myself is the way some of you have described, that when I stay engaged just simply down here, then it's very easy to get affected by all the sorrow and sadness that's going on. And an interesting that I've understood is that when we do karma action, and we know that there's an equal and opposite reaction to that. So if I'm giving joy, joy comes back to me. If I'm giving sorrow, the same thing, it comes back to me. But it's not just through words, we see the impact of words, but also actions. However, just simply my thoughts can also create karma. And so if I have good wishes for you, pure thoughts, good feelings, then the comeback of that, the karmic reaction of that is that it energizes me. I feel stronger. I feel more confident. I'm moving further in my own journey. But if I get impacted by the sorrow or negativity, and I'm sending out negative thoughts, the other person feels it, but also it comes back to me and I'm drained. When Daddy was talking this morning about using time and energy in a worthwhile way, always making sure that it's for the right purpose, with the right intention, it applies to our thoughts. Are my thoughts being used in a worthwhile way? And if they are, then that energy comes back to me also. And if not, then I get further down and I get upset by all that's happening. And so I see how the power of thoughts, the power of attitude, the power of vibrations is a very real energy that we can use in a way that otherwise we wouldn't be able to help others. It's protecting us, but it's also helping others. We don't see the result of what all that has happened. I said we've been doing meditation for world peace since 1976, and so where is world peace? But definitely things are moving forward and we're coming to a crisis climax. And it's not just one crisis after another. It's a permanent state of crisis now, perma-crisis. And so beyond that, there is the day. And that's not optimism. It's actually realism. The child, when there's darkness, doesn't realize that the dark night is going to end and the day will begin. But an adult knows that the night has to finish. The darkest hour comes before the dawn. And I believe the dawn has already broken. This is why we're able to come together in a place like this, in an atmosphere like this, and share ideas of this quality. And so I think that light has entered the world already, and we are moving towards the day when it's not just a few people who see the dawn, because usually it's not many people who are up to see the dawn, but once it's daylight, then the light comes streaming in and it can't be denied anymore. So we're definitely moving towards that. And the awakening is happening for more and more people across the globe. I remember there was a situation when there was a lot of upheaval going on in Namibia. And one particular individual, a powerful leader, was with us in the gathering. And Daddy had been talking about sending thoughts of peace to everyone. And he was, at that moment, quite aggressive in his response. But I can't just sit back and be peaceful. I have to do something about it. And it's only anger that can make things shift. And Daddy's response to him was, can anger actually eliminate anger? How is that possible? It's only the power of peace that can truly change anger. It's only when you sprinkle cool water on a fire that there's a possibility of the fire being put out. Otherwise, light another fire and the fire is going to expand. And he's now, this must have been about 5-6 years ago, maybe longer, but he's now become one of the main leaders of the Brahma Kumaris in Namibia. So it's a very nice story and very engaged, very active. So generally, we either get impacted by the sorrow or we react with anger at the injustice of things, but anger can't change the situation. It's just probably going to make it even worse. And so we have to find a different way. And the different way is the way of using God's light, God's love, God's peace, not even just my own, but allowing the source to come into the picture so that it's that energy which is from above that's making things move and change. Because ultimately it's that power that can purify. If I look at it in another way, I see how it's the ego that was spoken of earlier this morning. It's the ego, it's the anger, it's all the negative forces that humans carry and have created that vibration. It's all of these things that cause sorrow. And if we want to remove the negativity and the sorrow, it's a process of purification. Purification of my own mind, purification of my own feelings. And one of the questions that came up this morning was about, well, where is mind, where is consciousness, etc. The teachings that I've understood and practiced myself tell me that there are two things, soul and body. And everything that is consciousness and life itself is actually not biological life, but spiritual life is within the soul. Just this point of energy, this infinitesimal spark of light. And when the consciousness is awake, the Buddhi, the intellect is awake. And in that state then, I'm able to take power from above and transform my feelings and my emotions. I'm able to make sure that my awareness is clean and my thoughts move in a pure direction. And the power of the Buddhi is also such that when I'm influenced by negativity, it doesn't serve its purpose. It's not serving as a filter. It's meant to be the filter through which when thoughts pass, if it's the thought which is negative, the filter should be able to stop it there. But how often is it that our conscience is telling us something, and yet the force of the mind, the feelings and the emotions are so strong that we bypass the Buddhi, the intellect, and still do whatever. And of course, then at some point, the return of that is the sorrow that I feel and the sorrow that maybe I've given others. And so the journey of purification is the purification of the soul itself through that connection. I on my own can be very determined but the force of the negativity from outside and the negativity from within is such that it's not possible to change. When you think about addiction, we usually think about substance addictions, but in fact, my addiction to attachment, for example, if I'm attached to someone and whatever happens within that connection, well, that person may move out of the sphere of my life in some way or another, but my need to have my attachment satisfied will be that I'll hook into someone else. And there's a lot of societal evidence for this. Again, no need for more detail, but it means that I'm addicted to my greed, I'm addicted to my anger, my ego, and so on. And as with any external addiction, it takes a huge amount of power and determination to be able to move out of that and become free. And you have to constantly be on your guard, always alert. Same thing. At a moment when I realize that I don't want anger, I don't want ego and attachment, it's a challenge to the universe, because there's that part of the universe which is lifting me up, but there's that part also of the universe that's pulling me down. And the forces that pull down don't want to let go of me. And I'm very attached to them also. But if I have that determined thought and that clarity to know that this is what I must do, I take that power and go through the process of purification so that peace can replace anger, love can replace attachment, ego can be replaced by self-esteem and humility. So that process of change enables me to then move forward myself, but also with the power of that to be able to help others. There was a very interesting comment this morning about how 97 point, I've forgotten the exact figure, but it was something about how a huge percentage of the world actually have goodness. And I'd just like to add to that, that I think that every single human being has goodness within them. There's no one who begins the journey evil. No one at all. We all begin our journey with purity and love and innocence, and then things happen along the way. And so what it means is that if I go through that process of purification, it can become a trigger to help another to do the same, because that power is available for all, and each one can connect and make a difference to the situation here and now at this moment within my little world, but also then there can be an impact on many others and bring about a change in the world totally. So I see that light has entered the world and we are moving towards the day. Every single one of the SDGs, you mentioned that today, I think, or yesterday. On the one side, we say we want to make things sustainable, but that's really the sort of minimum acceptable level. It has to be more than that. Roberta gave a very lovely example of how we wouldn't say, I want to have a sustainable relationship. You'd never say that. That's not what relationships are about. So when you're talking about sustainability on any other level, how come we feel that, well, that's good enough? Well, it's not. It can be much more. But at the heart of each one of those goals that people have described is a whole question of being able to have love for the self, respect for other human beings, respect for all forms of life, respect for nature, and it begins inside. If my behavior with you is disrespectful, it doesn't matter what you're actually doing, but anything could trigger that disrespect from me. And on the other side, if I've developed that spiritual awareness in which I have my own inner dignity that no one can take away from me, then I'm going to treat you with respect. Again, irrespective of whether you deserve or don't deserve. It's not a factor. But here you are, human, other living creatures, nature. My responsibility is to be able to use the power of respect and give that respect. And so I see that spirituality actually has the answers to all the questions that we are facing today. And it's only through that change of heart and change of consciousness that together we can create that better world. Thank you.